In 1994, Mexico stood at a crossroads. Decades of one-party rule had left the nation weary of corruption, inequality, and silence. And then a new voice rose, Luis Donaldo Colosio, a candidate who promised not just power, but change, not just speeches, but hope. He spoke of justice, of dignity, of a Mexico reborn. Crowds gathered by the thousands. For the first time in years, people believed the future could be different. But in politics, hope is dangerous. And in Mexico, hope can be fatal. On March 23, 1994, in a dusty border town, a gunshot rang out. In seconds, the dream of a new Mexico collapsed, leaving behind not only a nation in mourning, but a mystery that refuses to die. Who killed Luis Donaldo Colosio, and why? This is the red pages of history, where the shadows of power reveal the moments that changed nations forever. He was born in the desert, Luis Donaldo Colosio Murrieta, the son of a modest family in Magdalena de Quino, Sonora, a town carved out of dust, silence, and resilience. From the beginning, Colosio seemed different, quiet, thoughtful, driven not by ambition for power, but by a deeper purpose. He studied economics at the National Autonomous University of Mexico, then crossed the border to the United States to earn a master's degree in political science. He was fluent in numbers, but even more fluent in people. When he spoke, it was not to impress, it was to connect. Colosio joined the Institutional Revolutionary Party, the PRI, the political machine that had ruled Mexico for more than 70 years. But he was not a typical party man. He believed in reform. He believed the PRI had lost touch with its people, and he believed that true change could come from within. His rise was swift. First a federal deputy, then the head of the PRI's National Committee, later the architect of the National Solidarity Program, where he fought poverty and inequality. Charismatic but never theatrical, intelligent but never arrogant, Colosio was the kind of politician who shook hands with street vendors and listened to mothers in dusty villages. To many, he looked less like a party functionary and more like a bridge to a different Mexico. In March 1994, he delivered a speech that shook the political elite. He spoke of a country with hunger and thirst for justice. He denounced corruption. He named inequality, and he hinted, with dangerous clarity, that even the PRI itself had to change. It was bold, it was risky, and it made him a target. Soon after, Colosio was chosen as the PRI's presidential candidate, but he was not their puppet. He began to drift from the party's carefully written script. He spoke openly of democracy, transparency, and dignity. He went not only to the big cities, but to forgotten neighborhoods, where his presence felt less like a campaign stop and more like a promise. He was becoming the voice of a new Mexico, a Mexico ready to break free from decades of silence and control. And that made him dangerous, not to the people, but to those who had built their empires in the shadows of power. Beyond politics, Colosio was a father, a husband, a thinker. He loved poetry. He valued dialogue. He was not perfect, no politician is, but he was sincere. He carried the weight of history with every step, knowing that each word he spoke could shift the ground beneath him. He was walking a tightrope between loyalty to his party and loyalty to his people, and the rope was beginning to fray. Luis Donaldo Colosio represented something rare, a man inside the system who wanted to fix it, a candidate who didn't just promise change, he embodied it. And in a country exhausted by silence, his voice was beginning to roar. But history has its own rhythm, and just as his message began to spread, a bullet was chambered. The year is 1994. Mexico is not at war, but it is not at peace either. The streets of Tijuana, Ciudad Juarez, and Mexico City pulse with unease. The peso collapses, corruption festers, and the people, tired of endless promises wrapped in speeches, begin to lose patience. For more than 70 years, the PRI has ruled. It is not merely a party, it is a system, a machine. A shadow government with smiling faces and iron fists. On January 1st, the same day NAFTA takes effect, the illusion of control shatters. From the jungles of Chiapas emerges the Zapatista Army of National Liberation. Ski masks, rifles, and a voice, Subcomandante Marcos, speaking of dignity, land, and justice. Their uprising is more than a rebellion. It is a cry from the forgotten, and it exposes the cracks in Mexico's so-called democracy. Inside the PRI, panic spreads. The party feels its grip slipping. The people demand change, but change threatens the very foundations that keep the elite in power. Into this fragile moment steps Luis Donaldo Colosio, chosen as the PRI's presidential candidate. Meanwhile, Mexico's intelligence service, CISEN, watches everything, every call, every meeting, every movement. They know Colosio is drifting from the script. They know his words are gaining force. They know the people are listening. And in the shadows, whispers rise, whispers of control, whispers of removal, whispers of a bullet, and yet hope spreads. Colosio's rallies grow larger, his voice steadier. Thousands gather to see him, to hear him. They chant his name, they believe. For once they see in a politician something rare, a man who looks them in the eye and does not flinch. But hope is fragile, and in Mexico, hope has enemies. March 23, 1994. The sun hangs low over Lomas Taurinas, a poor neighborhood in Tijuana, Baja California. Dust clings to the air. Children chase each other between crumbling walls. Vendors shout over the hum of anticipation. Luis Donaldo Colosio is coming. He's not just a candidate, he's a symbol, a man who speaks of justice, not just policy. A man who walks into forgotten places and says, "I see you." Colosio steps out of his SUV, surrounded by aides, bodyguards, and local officials. He's wearing a white shirt, sleeves rolled up, smile warm but tired. He waves to the crowd, hundreds gathered in a dusty lot, pressed against metal barriers. Music plays, flags wave. The crowd chants, "Presidente, Presidente." He climbs the stage. He begins to speak. His voice is calm, deliberate. He talks about poverty, dignity, change. He talks about a Mexico that belongs to everyone. In the crowd, a man moves closer. He's young, nervous, sweating. He's holding a pistol, a .38 caliber revolver, hidden beneath a jacket. Security is distracted. The music is loud. The crowd is dense. Colosio steps off the stage. He walks toward the people. He wants to shake hands. He wants to look them in the eye. The man pushes forward. He raises the gun. A single crack splits the air. Colosio's head jerks violently. His body collapses, knees buckle, arms limp, face to the ground. Screams erupt. People scatter. Some fall, some freeze. Blood pools beneath his head. His white shirt stains red. His eyes flutter, searching for something that's already gone. Security tackles the shooter. Punches fly. The crowd surges, desperate to flee, desperate to understand. Aides rush to Colosio. They lift him, gently, urgently. His pulse is weak. His breath is shallow. He's rushed to the hospital. Doctors fight to save him. They open his skull. They try to stop the bleeding, but the damage is too deep, too sudden, too final. At 6:55 p.m., Luis Donaldo Colosio is pronounced dead. Age, 44. Cause, gunshot wound to the head. The man who promised change is gone, and Mexico is left with silence, a silence heavier than the gunshot itself. Who was the shooter? Why did he do it? Was he alone? Was this a random act, or a message from the shadows? The official story says it was Mario Aburto Martinez acting alone, but many don't believe it. Too many inconsistencies, too many secrets, too much fear. His death was not just the end of a man, but the fracture of a nation's fragile hope. He died in a hospital bed, surrounded by chaos. But his voice, the one that spoke of justice, dignity, and reform, did not die with him. Luis Donaldo Colosio became more than a candidate. He became a symbol of what Mexico could have been, of what it still might become. The streets of Mexico fell silent. Candles flickered in windows. People wept, not just for a man, but for a dream. The PRI scrambled to contain the damage. They named a new candidate. They promised stability, but the people had seen behind the curtain. And once a nation sees the shadow, it can never unsee it. They had seen what happens when hope threatens power. Was Mario Aburto truly the lone assassin? Why did the investigation change versions so many times? Why were key witnesses silenced, ignored, or disappeared? Why did the official narrative feel rehearsed? To this day, many believe Colosio was not killed by a man, but by a system. Luis Donaldo Colosio Jr. was just 8 years old when his father was killed. Today, he is a rising political figure in Mexico. He speaks with the same calm, he walks with the same purpose, and he carries a name that still trembles with memory and with unfinished destiny. Colosio's assassination did not end corruption. It did not dismantle the PRI, but it planted a seed of awareness, a seed of resistance, a seed of truth. And every time someone asks, who really killed Colosio? That seed grows. He walked into a crowd. He smiled. He believed in change. And he was silenced. But history remembers not the bullet. It remembers the voice. Because voices may be silenced, but echoes never die. If this story moved you, subscribe to the Red Pages of History and join us as we turn the next page. Until then, I'll see you in the next episode.